Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise, stack up the best sources, and really distill them into those crucial insights you need. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something incredibly important. Understand the best ways to prevent motor vehicle accidents and, well, enhance global road safety. We've pulled insights from some really diverse and, frankly, authoritative sources for this. We're looking at the CDC, the World Health Organization, specialist outlets like Highways Today, plus research from Alliant and the Bloomberg School of Public Health. Our goal: to unpack these evidence-based strategies, give you hopefully a shortcut to understanding why, despite knowing how to save lives on our roads, we still face these huge challenges worldwide.
And that's exactly it. It's really striking and honestly quite heartbreaking that road injuries are still one of the leading preventable killers globally. We're not talking about some mystery illness here. This is something we fundamentally know how to deal with. And it's especially tragic in low-income countries where the impact is just so much higher. It really highlights this urgent global need for not just ideas, but, effective action.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Because if we know how to prevent these deaths, where do we even start to understand why it's still such a massive, massive issue? What's the foundational concept here? The big shift in thinking we need?
Yeah, the foundational concept, the one gaining real traction globally, is called the safe system approach. And it really is a fundamental shift. For decades, the focus was mostly on the driver, right? If you crash, it's basically seen as your fault. But the safe system approach kind of flips that. It starts by acknowledging that humans make mistakes. We're fallible. It's just how we are. So the emphasis shifts to designing the entire road system. That means the infrastructure, the vehicles, the laws, and yes, behavior too, to be inherently forgiving of those errors. The goal is to create an environment where if a crash does happen, it doesn't lead to serious injury or death, especially for vulnerable users, pedestrians, cyclists. It basically treats road safety as a shared responsibility, not just something resting on the individual driver's shoulders.
That's a really significant shift in perspective. But I have to ask, does that risk letting drivers off the hook a bit? I mean, if the system is designed to catch our mistakes, does that reduce individual accountability? Or maybe the urgency for drivers to actually improve their own habits?
That's a fair point, and it's a common question. But no, it absolutely does not let drivers off the hook. Not at all. It frames accountability differently, you see. It's about recognizing that, yes, individual choices absolutely matter, but the system itself needs to be strong enough to protect us even when those choices aren't perfect. We can still push for safe driving, definitely, but the system acts like a safety net. And those main risk factors we all know: speeding, driving under the influence, not using seatbelts or helmets, distracted driving, they're still the key culprits behind crashes. The safe system approach focuses on tackling these behaviors through smarter design, better enforcement, not just by telling people drive safer.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like building safety in, rather than just relying on perfect behavior. We all know those behaviors are dangerous, but maybe the sheer scale of their impact gets a bit lost day to day. Can you give us some hard numbers, some specific data points that really drive home how, well, disproportionate the impact of these actions can be? Because that's where it often gets really interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The data is quite stark and sometimes not what you'd intuitively expect. Take speeding, for instance. For every single 1% increase in average speed, you're looking at roughly a 4% increase in fatal crashes.
Wow, 4%.
Yes, a 4% jump. That's a huge nonlinear increase in risk for what might seem like a pretty small change in speed. It shows how even just creeping over the limit can have deadly results. And then think about the protective power of really simple devices. Proper helmet use for motorcyclists. It reduces their risk of death by over 6 times.
6 times. That's incredible.
It is. And for people in cars, seatbelts cut the risk of death by up to 50%. These aren't just minor tweaks. They are often the difference between life and death, all for clicking a belt or strapping on a helmet.
So, okay, enforcement of those rules is clearly crucial. But beyond that, what about actively training drivers, making them safer? Is education effective on its own? Or are there limits if the system around them isn't supportive?
Training is definitely a vital piece of the puzzle, but it works best when it's part of that broader safe system. We're talking about promoting safe driving behaviors, specifically through defensive driving skills. This goes beyond just, knowing the highway code. It's about anticipating hazards, even hazards caused by other drivers who might not be paying attention. Things like maintaining safe following distances, that classic 3-second rule, right? Cultivating constant hazard awareness Basically driving proactively, anticipating what might happen, and also promoting calm driving, even when things get stressful. These skills really do reduce risky behaviors because they help drivers react better to the unexpected. But you're right to ask about limits. Training alone won't fix poorly designed roads or inherently unsafe vehicles. It's an important layer, yes, but not a magic bullet.
Right, a layer in the system.
Mm.
So we've covered drivers, their behavior, their training. Now, if we're building better drivers,
Yeah.
what about the actual environment they're driving in, the stage itself? How does the road infrastructure play into preventing accidents and protecting us fallible humans?
Infrastructure. It's absolutely crucial. And honestly, it's a huge part of the safe system approach that sometimes gets less attention than, say, driver behavior. It means building roads that are inherently safer just by their design. We're talking about clear road markings, ones you can actually see in bad weather or at night, adequate lighting, designated footpaths, and proper bike lanes to keep vulnerable users separate from faster traffic. Safe crossings, too. Places where pedestrians and cyclists feel confident they can cross without taking their lives in their hands. And then you have traffic calming features, things like speed bumps, chicanes, and especially roundabouts.
Roundabouts, people love to complain about them.
Oh, yes, they do. But they're incredibly effective from a safety perspective. They eliminate those really dangerous high-speed right-angle or head-on collision points you get at traditional intersections. They force drivers to slow down and navigate, significantly cutting the severity if a crash does occur.
Okay. Point taken on roundabouts. And what about the vehicles? We've done the roads, the people, but the cars, trucks, motorcycles themselves must be a huge factor too. How much can vehicle technology help?
Indeed, vehicles are another critical pillar. Strengthening vehicle safety standards is just paramount. This means equipping vehicles with essential safety features, ideally as standard, not as expensive optional extras. We're talking airbags, obviously. Anti-lock braking systems, ABS, which stop the wheels locking up in an emergency stop. Electronic stability control, or ESC, which is brilliant at helping drivers keep control if they swerve or skid. And also robust structural crash protection, making sure the car's body absorbs energy effectively in a crash to protect the occupants. But it's not just about the fancy new tech, it's also about making sure vehicles stay safe over their lifetime. So, regular inspections, adhering to manufacturing standards, making sure those safety features actually work when needed. These technologies essentially build that forgiveness we talked about directly into the machine itself. They anticipate and help mitigate driver errors.
So we're layering things up, safer roads, better trained drivers, and more forgiving vehicles. But even with all that, accidents can and do still happen. What's crucial for those moments right after a crash, when someone's life might literally be hanging in the balance?
Post-crash care. It's the final but absolutely critical piece of this whole safety puzzle. It's often the deciding factor between a minor injury and a lifelong disability, or worse, death. Quick, effective emergency response and trauma care are just vital. That means having well-trained first responders who can get to the scene fast, provide immediate life support, stabilize the patient, and get them quickly to a hospital that's equipped to handle serious trauma. Every single minute counts with severe injuries. An efficient post-crash system ensures that all the effort put into prevention doesn't go to waste if a crash does occur.
Right, it completes the chain of survival, essentially. Okay, to try and bring all these different threads together, let's look at a real-world example, a sort of case study maybe, something that shows where these strategies are working, or maybe more pointedly, where the gaps and challenges still lie on the ground.
Yeah, let's take Addis Ababa in Ethiopia as an example. It really provides a stark illustration of the challenges when these strategies aren't comprehensively implemented across the board. The data from there shows some pretty significant issues. Excessive speeding, it's endemic. About 59%, almost 6 out of 10 vehicles were recorded exceeding safe speed limits.
Wow, nearly 60%.
Exactly. And despite knowing how incredibly protective helmets are, actual correct usage among motorcyclists is critically low, only about 27%.
27%, that's shockingly low given the risk.
It is. And here's an interesting contrast. Seatbelt use for drivers is impressively high, around 99%. Great. But then look at restraints for children in the back seat. Compliance there plummets to a mere 6%.
6%, that's appalling.
It really highlights the problem. It tells us that even if one part of the system, like maybe enforcement for driver seatbelts, seems strong, huge vulnerabilities remain if the other pillars infrastructure that supports safe speeds, vehicle safety standards, and crucially, consistent behavioral change across all road users, including protecting children, aren't equally strong and addressed together. It just underscores that partial implementation, focusing on only one area, leaves these huge deadly gaps in the safety net.
So pulling this all together, what does it really mean? It seems clear that preventing motor vehicle accidents isn't simple. There's no single magic fix. It's a complex, multifaceted challenge. But, and this feels like the important part, the good news is we do have clear, evidence-based solutions. It's not a mystery we need to solve. It seems more like a matter of will and commitment.
That's precisely it. I think the core takeaway has to be that safe roads don't just happen by accident, ironically enough. They are a deliberate creation. They demand dedicated systems thinking, robust laws that are actually enforced, thoughtful design that accepts human imperfection, and compassionate, rapid post-crash care. It's a continuous, interconnected effort. It involves everyone, really, from policymakers and city planners to car manufacturers, and right down to every single person using the road.
Okay. So given that road safety is truly a shared responsibility, one where, as you said, every piece of the puzzle matters, here's something final for you, our listener, to ponder. In your own community, thinking about where you live and drive, what's one area? Maybe it's a specific dangerous intersection. Maybe it's a policy that needs changing. Maybe it's just a widespread driving habit you see every day. Where do you see the biggest, most impactful opportunity to save lives by applying some of these ideas we've discussed? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into global road safety.